On today's show, we're looking at the worst case scenario for the Rangers this winter. How is the worst it's going to look? And is that still a decent team? Talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Paddock, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Paddock. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into the worst case scenario for the Rangers this winter, what that would look like, how much they would be spending, who they could even bring in. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, the Rangers have a lot of work to do this offseason. They are coming off of a disappointing 78-84 season where their Pythagorean record was honestly a little worse than that. 75-win team was kind of the true talent level of where this club was last year. And basically, to get back to the playoffs, to get back to contention, they need to get about 15 wins better. That's a lot better. That is staggeringly better. But I think they've got a lot of internal candidates to be better, but they're still going to need to be very busy this winter, upgrading the pitching staff, both in the bullpen and in free agency, in the rotation. They're going to need to be big players in all these markets, but it seems like they're not going to have a huge budget to spend. I don't think, as much as I would love for them to get Juan Soto, as much as I talked about how it's possible on Monday's show, I don't think that it's a likelihood. And even if they signed Juan Soto, that would basically be their entire offseason. And, Juan Soto is great, but the 15-win improvement does not just come from Soto. He did have, I believe, an 8-WAR season last year, but still, he's still got 7 more wins of improvement that he cannot improve the starting rotation or the bullpen or anything like that by himself, unless he starts pitching and is amazing at that. I don't see that happening. But still, the Rangers have a lot of work to do. So let's get into starting with the starting rotation. The biggest thing that I think the Rangers will need to address, or at least the most money that I think they'll spend, will come in this starting rotation. The rotation right now, it's fine. It's just I don't trust the depth of it, the health of it. The upside of it is very good. Obviously, you have Jacob deGrom starting at the top of your rotation. That's a great pitcher. You have Kumar Rocker, who showed a lot last year. You've got Tyler Mahle, who has shown a lot in his career. You've also got Cody Bradford and John Gray, who are solid into the rotation options. You've also got some depth in Dunning and Leiter, but I think you need one more. And if the Rangers are just going to get one starter, I know I said this is the worst case scenario, but I think bringing back Nathan Eovaldi is not a certainty, but it's going to be, I think, the Rangers' top priority. I say in this worst case scenario, they miss out on Roki Sasaki. That would be quite literally the perfect fit in terms of, being financially responsible in the long term. He would be a very financial responsible option. And I think of all the guys that are on the market, with Garrett Cole now going officially back to the Yankees and unopting out, a whole weird scenario there. But of the guys that are on this market, of the pitchers that are on this market, I really do think that Sasaki has the most upside, but I feel like it's such a likelihood that he goes to the Dodgers. I feel like you can say that about just about any free agent of just, they're going to go to the Dodgers because they're just going to spend $1 billion and keep winning. And it's going to be really annoying for the rest of us who are not fans of the Dodgers. But I think Eovaldi is going to be their top priority this winter. I think getting one starting pitcher just gives the rotation that much more depth. I think Eovaldi would sign somewhere. It's projected, according to SpotTrack, for a 2-year, $49 million deal. He opted out of his $20 million player option, as is his right to go elect free agency and as is financially responsible. I mean, these guys, these players, they don't get free agency that often. They make the entirety of most of their life's wages in the first in a 10-year, 15-year window for these guys. So, I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world for him to opt out after having a couple of really, really great seasons. That's why the Rangers included that clause in there, thinking, okay, he's probably going to be here for 2 years. And now the Rangers love him so much. I think signing him to somewhere in the nature of a Sonny Gray deal. Sonny Gray signed a 3-year, $75 million deal with the Cardinals before last season. And quite frankly, I think Eovaldi is a lot better than Gray. I think the upside for Gray in the regular season is higher. Gray showed a little bit more of a track record of health, and he was a year younger than Eovaldi will be this offseason when Sonny Gray signed that deal. So maybe it is just a 2-year deal that gets it done, but I think 3 is going to be on the table from other teams. And I think that the Rangers will have to match that. I think that the Rangers absolutely are obsessed with Nathan Eovaldi, as they should be. I mean, he is such an integral part of this World Championship, of mentoring these young pitchers. I mean, the impact he has on the young pitchers alone, of having another year next to Rocker, next to Leiter. I talked about it with Abby Jones on tomorrow's show that I recorded yesterday. It makes sense, trust me. But she talked about the impact that Eovaldi has had on Rocker before his home debut. Rocker said, yeah, Nathan Eovaldi is the best teammate I've ever had, and I've only been teammates with him for like a week. So that just shows you the kind of impact that he has. And having that for a full season on your young, budding, potentially homegrown ace, that's, I think, worth the extra year. And there are going to be plenty of other teams in the hunt for Nathan Eovaldi. I mean, the way that he was talked about at the trade deadline, should the Rangers have decided to be, if the Rangers had decided to be sellers at the trade deadline, not traders at the trade deadline, they still were. They were just the buyers, unfortunately, and that didn't work out for Texas. But there were a lot of teams sniffing around Nathan Eovaldi. I mean, teams like the Orioles, I mean, literally every other team in contention, any team that has any hopes of making the playoffs this year would love to have Nathan Eovaldi in their rotation for the playoff time. They would love it. Even the Dodgers, with all the pitching depth that they have, no matter how much pitching depth you have, you can quite literally never have enough. And that's why I think bringing Eovaldi back is so important. Even though Eovaldi hasn't, before these last couple of years, had a track record of not being super durable, but the Rangers got 29 starts out of him this year, 170 and 2/3 innings. He was fantastically healthy. He missed some time in different spots last year, but came back and was healthy for the playoffs. Not so much for that stretch run, but he got healthy on day 2 of the playoffs against the Rays. Or actually, I guess it was, day 2 against the Rays, dominated them and really set the tone throughout that entire World Series. So I think that, if it takes 3 years, $75 million, they're going to be, I think Baltimore is a team that is going to be very aggressive in pursuing him. I wouldn't be shocked if the Dodgers or the Yankees came sniffing around. Heck, I wouldn't be shocked if the Astros came sniffing around, because he is from Alvin, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. The one imperfect thing about Eovaldi is that he did grow up outside of Houston. Nobody's perfect. It is still the same hometown as Nolan Ryan. And it feels maybe a little like heresy to say that Nathan Eovaldi is the greatest Texas Rangers pitcher to come out of Alvin, Texas, but he won the Rangers their first championship, so you might have a little bit of leeway in saying that. But I think that adding Eovaldi makes me feel just that much better about the rotation and its depth next year, because the Rangers had 7, actually, I think it was 7, more than 7 guys make at least 5 starts last year. Yeah, they had Eovaldi, I think it was 8. Eovaldi, Heaney, Gray, Lorenzen, Dunning, Bradford, also Urania, 9 starts for him, 9 starts for Max Scherzer, 6 starts for Jack Leiter. So if my math is mathing correctly, I believe that is 9 different guys who made at least 5 starts last year. And that's not even counting any of Rocker or DeGrom or Mahle, who each made 3 starts. The Rangers right now have about, 6, 7-ish guys you feel confident could start 3 to 5 games next year. You feel good about them starting. Not that they just could, but you'd feel good about them starting in DeGrom, Mahle, Rocker, Bradford, Gray, Dunning, and Leiter at the end of that list. And Leiter could jump up into that actual rotation. He could end up pushing out a Bradford or a Gray out of the rotation. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. You'd like to see it happen, but wouldn't like to be forced into that because you have big health concerns about how much you're even going to pitch Rocker, how much DeGrom is going to pitch next year, how much Malley is going to pitch next year. I mean, Gray has had so many different stints on the IL during his time in Texas. I would honestly prefer it if he was an elite back end relief kind of role. I think that would be how he would help this team best, ideally. But you can't really do that unless you bring back Eovaldi. And even in the worst case scenario, I don't see the Rangers letting Eovaldi leave unless someone just really, really blows him out of the water. Coming up, we'll look at what the Rangers will do in their bullpen, how much they have to do, and why they might end up losing their two best options from last year. Right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. They've got all kinds of different odds right now. I think the only odds they have for baseball is the 2025 World Series winner. Right now, Rangers still sitting there at the 9th best odds, plus 2,500. Of course, the favorites are the Dodgers at plus 400 and the Yankees at plus 750. Those Rangers odds at plus 2,500, tied with the Guardians and Cubs and Mariners. I'd feel pretty decent about those odds. So go over to FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. A shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I will be back with Abby Jones of DLLS talking all about Rangers baseball, all kinds of different stuff on that show. Really great stuff. Go check it out. So let's get into the worst case scenario of the Rangers bullpen. The worst case scenario is the Rangers just have the 2023 bullpen. So bring back Will Smith and everything that very much didn't work out there. No, I don't think the Rangers are going to bring back Will Smith. But with the Will Smith streak winning a World Series still alive at 5 consecutive years now, maybe the Rangers take a shot on that. I don't see them having the assets or the Dodgers having the willingness to trade their Will Smith, or maybe they go find another Will Smith and just add him to the roster and see if that magic works. But no, the Rangers have some work to do in their bullpen. Their top 3 relief options are all free agents right now. Yates electing free agency, Leclerc finally hitting free agency for the first time in his career, and David Robertson declining that mutual option with Texas and heading out on the open market, as is his right, as was expected. Same with all of those guys, all free agents. And so far, the Rangers have not brought any of them back just yet. And I think in this worst case scenario, there's a likelihood that a possibility. I don't want to say a likelihood, but it's entirely on the table that David Robertson retires. He is getting up there in age. He's 39. He's going to be heading into his age 40 season. He's been playing since 2009 or 8, excuse me. He's been in the big leagues since 2008. And he debuted as a 23-year-old. That's how long he's been around the game. He has been in baseball, in Major League Baseball, for 16 seasons. 876 2/3 innings. It would take another, I'd say, 2 years or so for him to hit 1,000 career innings. I don't know if he necessarily wants to do that or if he wants to pitch until he hits the 20 seasons in the big league mark. I don't think that's who knows with Robertson. I feel like he can keep throwing those cutters and being effective forever. But I think that bringing back Yates and Robertson is, when you look at the Rangers bullpen and they're, what they need, those two guys were perfect last year. Absolutely perfect. The rest of the Rangers pen, not so much. Not a great year from Leclerc. Not a great year from Spores. Not a great year for, honestly, the vast majority of the Rangers pen. They got some good innings out of Arena as a splitting time as a starter versus a reliever. A little bit better as a starter. They got some nice innings out of Jacob Latz, but they need at least two different arms in the pen. And with $25 million a year allocated to not Jacob DeGrom, he's getting more than $25 million, but to Nathan Eovaldi in this scenario, the Rangers don't have all that much money to play with. So they would have to probably go on the cheaper side for at least one of their relievers. I think one of them could be Caleb Thielbar. Talked about him last year, was not a great season for the lefty reliever. The Rangers also need more lefties in that pen, unless they really trust what Jacob Latz and Walter Pennington are going to give them. I'm not entirely sure that I do. Maybe they end up being pretty darn good and kind of repeating what they did this year, but I don't feel like it's all that likely. But again, relievers are impossible to predict. Just like Caleb Thielbar, who I talked about him when I was doing my episode maybe a week or two ago about buy low options at reliever. I think it was actually last week. Who knows? I've lost track of when anything happens in the offseason since there are so few hard dates and date lines to separate things. But Thielbar, for a lefty reliever who has shown a lot of upside, buying low after a bad season, trusting that he can bounce back. His stuff is still there. He was just kind of ineffective with the Twins last year. And at $1 million, a lefty you can throw in the mid 90s who's got some nasty breaking stuff, that's a pretty decent deal. And then you bring in one more reliever, and I think fans would consider this the worst case scenario because of the frustrations with him. But I think bringing back Jose Leclerc he's projected to make 2 years, $4.6 million average annual value, a $9.6 million deal. I think that would be a good deal for the Rangers. Now, he would probably be the Rangers closer next year. And so far in the regular season, he hasn't really shown a propensity to do that. I mean, part of the reason why he got knocked out of his role as the closer, he was the closer heading into the season. Part of that was Kirby Yates being amazing, but part of it was Leclerc just didn't have it early on this season. He was much better in a sixth inning kind of role. He wasn't really pitching in all that many leverage spots until the end of the season when he really started to find it again. But he's got that upside. And again, relievers are so finicky. I have a lot of love for Leclerc because of what he did in the 2023 World Series run. He was absolutely phenomenal. He will be a Texas Rangers legend forever for that. But for fans and for most people, myself included, honestly, sometimes watching Pico, it is frustrating and maddening to see how many walks and how many times he gets himself into trouble. I mean, his stuff is incredibly nasty, and the movement is insane on those pitches, which is why he gets so many strikeouts. It's also why he gets so many walks. It's also why he has so many wild pitches. I mean, he is a very volatile reliever, but he's still got it. I mean, he's still got that upside. I mean, last year he had 12 strikeouts per 9 innings and 4.3 walks per 9. I mean, his FIP was much better. All of that. He didn't allow a whole lot of home runs, didn't allow that much hard contact, but he would still get himself into these mind-numbingly frustrating scenarios. And if the Rangers do make these two moves and they're their only moves in the pen, then I think it would be kind of a worst-case scenario. You hope for Spores back, and Spores is your 8th inning guy, and Leclerc is your 9th inning guy. And then I talked about it on, what was it, Monday's show? Tuesday's show? I think it was Tuesday's show, of these internal relief options that could come up and be amazing. There's reason to have some hope that Teodo could come up and be exceptional. I think that Mark Church, no matter what, is going to play a role in the Rangers bullpen next year. I don't think he's going to be the Rangers closer or their 8th inning or maybe even 7th inning guy, but there's reason to have some hope that he could go back there and be a flamethrower. But if Leclerc is your closer heading into camp and your big bullpen free agent move does not inspire a lot of confidence, does not, leave a lot of room for hope of how good this team could be. And I think there's a likelihood that someone goes and offers Yates a whole bunch of money, a multi-year deal, and that the Rangers say, we're not going to match it. We think last year was, if not a fluke, but not that he's going to, I still don't think he's going to repeat a 1.17 ERA next year as a 38-year-old. Maybe he does. And I still think the Rangers, if they're going to sign a reliever, any reliever, if they only signed one, I would like it to be Kirby Yates because he was so dang phenomenal last year. But I see especially if they spend 25 mil on Evo. I don't think they're going to have room for what it might cost to get either David Robertson back or Kirby Yates back, let alone both of them. I'm hopeful, but still, this is the worst case scenario. So maybe we downplay that hope for now. Coming up, we're going to look at what the Rangers need to do with their offense, what they can afford to do in this scenario, the worst case scenario, right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by Hims. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provide access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready for whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works best for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. Products mentioned are chewable compound products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. This episode is also brought to you by Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Patrick Mahomes or Ellie De La Cruz rookie card, it's just not in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed is hit from last week's Arena Club slap pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent, with a full grade rationale provided and an explanation of how your card was scored. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb, code LOCKEDONMLB for $10 off your first purchase. Now let's look at the worst case scenario for this Rangers offense. I feel like the Rangers offense with worst case scenario for 2025 is 2024. What actually happened in 2024 honestly felt like one of the worst case scenarios for what this offense could have been. I mean, because coming off of 2023, there was no concern about this offense. No concern at all. You say, okay, they got number 2 and number 3 in MVP voting from last year. The number 1 guy is in a different league, so surely this offense will be amazing. We had, 5 All-Stars that were in the lineup, 1 All-Star that was a pitcher, Nathan Eovaldi. Thought, okay, there's going to be nothing wrong with this offense. All we're going to do is upgrade DH by adding Wyatt Langford, one of the top prospects in baseball, and then we're going to have a full season of Evan Carter in left field, and everything's going to be great. Nope, absolutely not. That is not what happened. And that is, probably not what's going to happen this next season in 2025. Maybe it bounces back. This offense bounces back like the Rangers hope. But in terms of what the Rangers added offensively last year, I mean, it was nothing. It was just those internal options, relying a lot on those rookies, which got them into trouble with Evan Carter's lack of durability and with Wyatt Langford being amazing down the stretch and amazing in the month of June, but offensively very inconsistent and a lot of pressure placed on that 22-year-old rookie. The only external bat that they really brought in was Andrew Kisner, backup catcher, who was a bat first catcher who had a 394 OPS. They talk about worst case scenario. It was just an incredibly rough year for Kisner. But I mean, this Rangers offense, what are they going to do offensively in terms of upgrading? I don't know that they're going to do that much. I think they're going to rely a lot internally. But the biggest question of what are they going to do with their offense, who they're going to sign with the bat, I think obviously they're going to sign a backup catcher. I don't see this being the year that they immediately start trusting Sam Huff as a legitimate backup to Jonah Heim, who will need to have a lot of time off of his feet. I think a 1A, 1B situation at catcher is probably what's going to end up happening for Heim this year, unless he, goes back to the all-star version of himself that we saw in 2023, which I don't know if that's happening. I would like that too. It would make a huge, huge difference in this lineup. But the question of this offense, there's not holes in it, but decisions that need to be made. And the decisions are in the outfield. You've got basically 5-6 guys for 4 spots: center field, left field, right field, DH. Those are the only question marks of who exactly is going where. There's not a question of if Adolis Garcia is going to be an everyday starter. It's just a question of where. There's not a question if Wyatt Langford is going to start every single day. The question is where. There is a question of, are the rest of those guys, the others that I didn't mention that are in contention for those spots, Evan Carter, Leody Taveras, Josh Smith. Those are the other 3 guys that are in contention for basically 2 spots. Wyatt Langford, I think, needs to be playing in the field. I think that's where his value is highest. I think ideally next year, my ideal offense looks a little something like Wyatt Langford in center field every single day, Evan Carter in left field, and then bring in some kind of other bat for right field or DH. And whoever's not doing that is going to be Adolis Garcia. I mean, Adolis either in right or DH, depending on what bat they bring in. Because last year they relied a whole lot. They were counting a whole lot on the offense to be powered by these 2 rookies that are in their early 20s. And that's a lot of pressure on them, and they didn't live up to it. Next year, I feel pretty confident saying that Wyatt Langford is going to live up to what the Rangers were hoping for. He is going to provide a lot of value with the bat. I'm pretty confident he's going to be the Rangers' second best hitter next year, only to Corey Seager. And I think there is a chance, not a likelihood, but there's a chance that he is the Rangers' best hitter next year. Maybe that's putting too much on him yet again. But still, the Rangers, I think, need to do something to upgrade this offense, because there's a lot of reason to hope that every single one of those bats is going to bounce back. You get a healthy Josh Young season. You get a healthy Evan Carter season. Those guys are, 10, 15, 20% better than league average with the bat. Those are all-star caliber level bats. Heim has shown that he has the ability to be an all-star level catcher offensively. Lowe, I think, had a much better offensive season than he gives him credit for last year. I mean, a 120 OPS plus was second best on the team, only to Corey Seager. I mean, yeah, you'd like him to have more pop, but offensively, he brings a lot of value. And then there's reason to hope for Marcus Semien. I mean, this has been a pattern for the last 5 years. I know he's going to be 34 next year, but he goes bad season, top 3 MVP finish. Bad season, top 3 MVP finish. Bad season, top 3 MVP finish. He's done it 3 different times. So I'm hoping that this is time number 4. Maybe top 3 MVP finish means second or first place MVP finish. Not entirely sure. But still, I don't know exactly what the Rangers are going to do in this worst case scenario for, DH / right field / center, left field, all of those spots. But I think in my worst case scenario, the Rangers don't sign anybody there because they say, no, it's fine. Everything will be fine. And it might be. It truly might be. It's not an irrational strategy. But the Rangers do have other bats to sign. They do need to fill out some other roster spots. So signing a backup catcher, Kyle Higashioka, 1 year, $1.6 million. Bringing back Travis Jankowski, 1 year, $1 million. There is a scenario where the Rangers trade Nathaniel Lowe to free up some space because he is going to make $10 million. But the kind of production that you could bring in at first base for that kind of money, I mean, Nathaniel Lowe is a very good value. Even at 10, even if he ends up making $11 million in arbitration this year, he is a very good player, defensively, offensively. I think he is going to be a massive part in this Rangers offense bouncing back next year. And I think that he is criminally underrated. And if the Rangers did end up trading him off, their internal candidates to replace him, there's not a lot there. There's really not a lot there. Unless you wanted to go with Zeke Duran, Josh Smith, first base platoon. But if you're upset about the power that Nathaniel Lowe isn't bringing, if those guys are your tandem at first base, you were really not getting a lot of power. Unless you want to bring up Blaine Krim, who had a great season in Round Rock, especially the second half, ended up with an 840 OPS, 20 home runs. He's a guy who I think could be an average first baseman one day, but he's 27 years old. I don't see the Rangers having Blaine Crim be plan A at first base, especially if he didn't even get a couple of at bats last year at DH or anywhere when this offense was really not doing anything and not even contending down the stretch. If they didn't do that, then I don't see them, bringing up Blaine Crim as plan A and trading off Nathaniel Lowe. I just don't see that happening. I also don't see them trading off Marcus Semien. I talked about that on a show last week, how I just don't see that happening. If this worst case scenario comes to pass of the Rangers signing Evo and then Leclerc and then Thielbar and then Higashioka and Jankowski, that's $33.2 million added in payroll allocations. So their total payroll would be somewhere around the $213.8 million mark. That's still $10 million shy, or $6.2 million shy of that $220 million target that Evan Grant put out there a couple weeks ago. I don't know if that's necessarily the target, but that would be what, 30-ish, not quite 30, $28 million or so shy of that tax number. So the Rangers would be well under the luxury tax, would reset that tax should they want to go into it next year when they have more of a definition of more of a hold of what the heck their TV situation is going to be and what the finances from that are going to be. I don't like this worst case scenario, but if this is the one that comes to pass, this is kind of what I came up with of, okay, this is about as bad as it could get. And that's still a decent offseason. To talk myself into the sunshiny optimist role without even meaning to on an episode entitled The Worst Case Scenario for the Rangers offseason. I don't see an offseason where the Rangers just go, nuts in terms of spending big. I also don't see a scenario where the Rangers go entirely, Scrooge-like, and they just don't spend anything on anybody. I think the reality is always going to be somewhere in the middle. And, if this is depressing, oh my gosh, this is all they're going to do. And I don't think they would get that much better with these additions. I mean, you're bringing back mainly the same team. You're changing out your backup catcher who didn't provide you anything last year. You're adding one new arm in the pen, and you're losing your two best arms in the pen to retirement and free agency. But I think even in this worst case scenario, there is reason to hope for the Rangers bounce back, even should they get super, super Scroogey. I think really the actual worst case scenario is if they don't bring in any starting pitching. But I don't see a realistic world where that happens, despite my frustrations with Ray, despite my frustrations with, priority one being getting under that luxury tax. There's still a way that the Rangers can do it, even if they have not the perfect offseason, not even a good offseason. The worst case scenario, all of that to say, really ain't all that bad. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. So check out tomorrow's show with Abby Jones of DLOS. Check out the show on Friday for a best case scenario if you're looking for a little bit more optimism. But that'll do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy Texas Rangers baseball.